The Netflix original documentary, American Murder, The Family Next Door, is about the killing of Shanann Watts and her 2 children by her husband. Now, I want to let you know right off the bat that this is going to have mild spoilers. If you haven't seen the case or aren't familiar with the case itself that made national headlines in the US, then this might come as a little bit of surprise to you in certain aspects, but I don't really know how to talk about a lot of the details in this without talking about some of the details. So if you do want to go into this documentary completely unspoiled, not knowing anything about it, then go ahead and skip the review and maybe come back to it afterwards and see if you agree with my thoughts or whatever. But if otherwise, let's just dive in. I was unprepared for this documentary. I mean, I knew about the case peripherally. I knew small things about it, that Chris Watts, the father, the husband, had murdered his family and then had been taken to trial and ultimately confessed and sentenced. What I didn't know was all of the other details that went into this, all of the things of just the misdirection that he put into it, and then his confession itself. The documentary does a good job of building the story of who Shanann is and just her relationship with her husband. And from the very get-go, we have video from like doorbell cameras and body cameras from police, as they're called, just because she's not responding to families or friends' calls or texts. So they figure something's wrong, so they call the police, and that's where we get a lot of body cam footage. And that, I think, relays some really interesting things. Just the interactions with like neighbors and other people that the police are coming in contact with, that I don't know if that was actually released in news footage. I think the documentary does a pretty good job of also showing us just the family life itself, and just from video, from Facebook video, a lot of it from Shanann herself as she would Facebook Live and just document on social media how they interacted as a family, how they would go to the beach, or what they did to celebrate their favorite football team or holidays or whatever. And everything that you saw in these at the beginning of the documentary really paints a picture of a very happy family. I mean, even as the investigation begins, when she has disappeared and nobody knows where Shanann or the kids are, you still don't totally suspect the husband. I mean, I know that that is the number one thing that go through detectives' minds is like, well, it's the family member. It is the husband if a wife and children go missing. But through some of the interactions, you could kind of see where there might be a little bit of doubt. I like that we get footage from inside the interview room. So as the detectives are speaking with the husband, and there's a reason I'm not saying his name a bunch of times, because I don't think we need to give the dirtbag any more credit or any more notoriety than he's already gotten. But as they talk with him and they begin to ask questions, and you can tell that the wheels are turning in their head, that they know something doesn't line up, that their gut, their intuition, their years of doing this are saying something is off about this, and we're just going to dive in and we're going to keep going. Now, I certainly don't understand the mindset of the husband and why he allows himself to be polygraphed. Dude, if you know you're guilty, then you're gonna fail. There's no way to get around that. And how are you even gonna explain being able to fail a lot of questions? I mean, I could understand maybe you fail one because you're nervous or you're upset, there's emotions. I don't really know all of it that goes into detail, how scientific all of the things are that they plug into you, and they have the heart rate going, and it's by a computer, and it's reading all of these responses. So I don't know what could set it off and what could maintain calmness, but we just get to slowly see it unravel, and we get to see, as the detectives and as the police, and then as more investigation happens, how more information is uncovered, and then where that leads in the story. And all the time, though, we are seeing texts between Shanann and her friends, as things may not be as happy as we thought they were, or at least we were displayed at the very beginning of the documentary. And even as kind of a shock to her, she's trying to figure out what's going on. Why is his behavior changing? What's going on in this? The documentary is 82 minutes long, and I'm not sure I wanted any more than that, or I needed any more than that. I mean, the first, 3/4 of it does a really good job of just building who Shanann is, their relationship, and then we get to see that questioning that I've talked about as she discusses with her friends just odd behaviors or unresponsiveness between her husband and herself, and how that is out of the ordinary, and how it's disappointing to her, and how hurt she is by that. I watch a lot of dark stuff. I read a lot of murder mysteries, and I watch crime dramas and even documentaries, and that's not a surprise if you're familiar with this channel. But while I'm watching this, in the last 15-20 minutes, there's not a lot that shocks me, and there's not a lot that really turns me off. But as I hear the dirtbag confess, my stomach turned. And I can't imagine a father doing this, a husband doing this. I know it happens. So it's not that I can't imagine that it happens in reality, but I can't put myself in that place. And to hear the words that this person used to destroy lives, ugh, this is a powerful documentary. I mean, if you wanted to know about the case, then you certainly should check it out. And if you wanted to get details that I don't think were necessarily released in the general public on the news footage or, interviews and body cam footage like I talked about, then you're going to definitely get more of that, and it's going to really paint the picture. But it's really hard for me to recommend this because of the ending, because we get to hear from his mouth what he did. The documentary itself is really well put together. It's shot well, it's edited well, and it tells a really good cohesive story. And I like that. And I like how it builds the beginning of it, it builds the story of the family, and then it leads us up to the events. And then even days after the events, as the investigation is happening, then it also takes us back a little bit so that we can fill in more details that they have discovered while investigating. And so it does tell a very compelling story. From a storytelling standpoint, they do it excellently. And I can't even fault them for the content because it's just real life. But it is hard to watch, and it's certainly not going to be for everybody, and it could very well be a trigger for a lot of people. So I can imagine that some of you are going to want to skip it, and I don't blame you for that either. If you do want to check it out, if you do end up checking it out, know that it is worthwhile. It is a good dive into current events, even though it is a terrible story and it is a terrible thing to watch. There's no sex or nudity, there is profanity, and there is some terrible graphic descriptions of violence. Like I said, it's hard for me to recommend this. I mean, I want to. I think it's well done. I think it should be seen. But at the same time, the content is just, well, it is what it is. And so, So there you go with that. How familiar are you with the case? Is this something new, or have you been following it for a long time and now you've been waiting for this documentary to see more of the details and to learn more? Either way, let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.